Okay, so by the end of this video, you should have a fully decked out plan or concepts of a plan for how to write your personal statements. And throughout this video, I'm going to be giving you guys some of my personal advice and tips and tricks that I used when I was writing my application. So even if you're not writing a personal statement and you're writing some other supplemental essay, everything I say in this video still applies. So let's get started. What are we waiting for? Let's go. Let's go. Okay, so at this point you might be wondering, what is a personal statement? How do I write a personal statement? Why am I even applying to college in this economy? Those are good questions. So if you watched my other college advice video, you know how much effort I put into writing my own essays. And if you haven't watched my college advice video, you should go watch it, because that video is a prerequisite for what I'm gonna talk about in this video. So it'll make a lot more sense if you watch the other one first. Okay, step 1, find your topic. And what I mean by this is find what you're gonna write about in your essay. So first of all, whatever thing you have to write about should be important to you, it should matter to you. Okay. And it also should reveal something about your personality that you want admission officers to see. And if you have no idea what you're gonna write about, just think about the top 3 passions or interests that you have in your life right now. So basically, whichever 3 things that you spend the most time in your day doing, aside from studying and academic stuff, those are your core activities, and you want to pick the top one and use that as your personal statement. But you can choose other things as well. You can also tell like an experience, something in the past that led you to commit to one of the activities that you did. And then for the remaining 2 activities, you can leave them for your supplemental essays, because that's what I did. When you're picking a topic, don't worry about how crazy the story is. In fact, I would just try to come up with the craziest story that you have to tell. That's what makes it unique. That's what makes it stand out. So yeah, don't be afraid to, I guess, kind of bend the rules a little. Think outside of the box, you know? Step 2, start writing. And the first thing that you want to do is start with a hook. What? And make sure that it's very engaging and captures the reader's attention. It's like coming up with a pickup line. If you ever want to ask out your crush on a date, right? The better the pickup line, the better the chances are that you will be accepted. Oh my god! And if you have trouble coming up with pickup lines, I'm sorry, but just keep trying, because that stuff takes a lot of time. And sometimes, like for me personally, I just come up with random like clever one-liners and I just write them down in my notes app, and that's how I kind of keep track of like my thoughts. Check out these expo markers that I got. Let's go. Oh wait, that's a highlighter. Random fun fact. I bought these, I think 9 years ago, and I haven't used them since, so I'm gonna use them today. Let's go. Make sure that you jump right into the story that you're telling immediately after the hook, right? The hook sets you up for the story. That should be like a couple of sentences as the first paragraph, and then after that you start talking about whatever story that you want to tell. Do not start your story with a once upon a time type introduction, because nobody wants to read that. Just make sure, don't spend too much time and effort on laying out the context of your entire story. Rather, I would try to weave in the important parts of the context as you write the story, so that it's kind of like a dual plot line where you're kind of setting up the event as you tell the event, instead of setting up the event before you tell the event, because that makes it more engaging to read, because the reader is also trying to understand what the hell is going on in your essay. And then once you're done with the intro, you gotta move on to the body paragraphs. It's just like a standard generic essay you would write for English class. Now this is where the meat of your essay is. You gotta make sure that you're addressing the prompt of your essay. So whichever prompt that you choose, make sure to read that prompt thoroughly to make sure that you're actually answering all the aspects of the prompt. And don't be afraid to just give like a generic answer that you think that they would expect. Like always think outside of the box when it comes to these things. Yeah, so that's that. Make sure as you're telling the story, it reveals a big part of your personality, because that's the point of a personal statement. It has the word personal in it. It has to be personal. And if it isn't personal, then it isn't a personal statement. Remember to emphasize your core personal value that you want to tell through this essay. So whether that be bravery, perseverance, community service, intellectual curiosity, whatever it is, hopefully they are good values. And then when you're telling the story, gotta make sure to always show rather than tell. So use a lot of imagery, use a lot of metaphors, but don't overuse them. Use just enough. Alright, it's all about the balance. Make sure that you're telling the story and it actually sounds like something I would want to hear. If you're just telling me random stuff, I don't want to hear it. Right? Gotta make sure each sentence follows the next one and it makes sense. Right? It flows. And a good way you can check that your essay flows is to read it. And everything that I just said is a lot easier said than done. And if you still don't know what to write about, at this point, just start word vomiting everything onto the page. Chances are you're probably writing about an experience you've had in the past. So just write down every single thing that you remember from that experience. Write it all down on the paper. Do not care about the formatting or even grammar mistakes. Just put everything down on the page first. And even if you think that you don't remember that experience that well, chances are once you start word vomiting, a lot of memories will come rushing back at you and you find yourself getting that writer's flow. Also at this stage, don't worry about the word limit. I would overwrite. So for a personal statement, it's 650 words. Ignore that word limit. Just write 1,000 words. Write even more if you can, because at the very end, you're gonna have to condense it. And the more you have on the page, the more material you have to work with. If you already have 650 words, once you condense it, you might end up with like 300 words. So it's better to have 1,000 mediocre words on your page to work with than having not enough to work with. So write down everything that you felt during that experience, how you felt, what you accomplished, when was it, where was it, why was it. After you've done that, look back at your word vomit and do a couple sweeping edits. Right? So this is just basic grammar stuff, making sure what you said actually made sense. And then do an initial sorting with the useful information versus the essential information. And then maybe use like a highlighting tool to highlight the sentences that you think are really good, and then highlight the sentences that you think are mid, and then highlight the sentences that you think are trash with different colors so you can see. You could also try to condense what you wrote, because obviously if you're word vomiting, it's all stream of consciousness, probably doesn't make much sense and you're probably repeating a lot of stuff. Try to condense the words that you've said into more concise sentences. And a good exercise I use to make sure that I'm writing very concisely is to find two sentences that are next to each other that you see are very clearly repeating each other and combine it into one sentence. So basically force yourself to write the sentence in a way that delivers the same information as before, but shorter and quicker to understand. And that is a lot easier said than done. So it takes a lot of time. So don't worry, don't get frustrated if you can't do that initially. It just comes with time and practice. And at the end of the day, imagine that you're writing this essay for a 5th grader or a middle schooler to read. And they have to make sure that they understand it and actually enjoyed reading it. So go find a middle schooler to read your essay. By the way, everything that I just said is called editing your essay. And you want to make sure that you're doing this a lot of the time. You want to do this repeatedly. In fact, you want to edit your essay every time that you open up the doc and start working on it, because it's the first thing you do and you have a fresh mind and you can spot places that you want to fix more easily. Also make sure that when you're writing you take a lot of breaks, because writing isn't like doing math problems, alright? You really just need time to think through the things. So don't try to rush it all in 1 hour period. Instead, splitting it into like 3 20-minute periods might even be more helpful, and you might end up doing more things in those 3 periods versus the 1 hour period. Also, sometimes I like to just leave the essay alone for like a day or two and let me completely, or I guess somewhat, forget about what I even wrote about, and then when I come back I can kind of read it as an outsider rather than someone who wrote the essay, and I can spot more places to fix and more editing stuff to do. Step 3. After you finished writing and editing your rough drafts a couple of times, now it's time to add the reflection. This is where you talk about the moral of the story. So what you learned from that experience, how that experience impacted you, why that experience impacted, how did that experience change, why did it change, stuff like that. And this is a very crucial part of your essay. And it should be easy for you to write the reflection, because that means the event genuinely had an impact on your life. If you find yourself that you have to look very hard to find like a moral of the story, then it probably isn't a good experience to write about, and it probably doesn't mean that much to you. So just really dig deep, alright? Dig deep into your emotional scars and your past and find the most traumatic experience that you've ever experienced and write about that. Also, it can also be something like really small. It doesn't have to be like a giant, massive, life-changing event, right? It can be something really small, like helping out your grandparents. It can be something more grounded, like being in a community volunteering program thing. I wouldn't know anything about that. I didn't do any volunteering. And during the reflection, you want to make sure that you're not retelling the story, right? You have to take it one step further. You can talk about how you continue to live by the value or whatever interests or field of study that you're interested in, that you talked about in the experience today, and how you've continually advanced whatever thing that you talked about in your body paragraphs. And what I've noticed is a lot of people, including my friends, overlook this part of the essay and they just write like a couple sentences, but it's actually very important, and you want to make sure that you're writing at least like 1 to 2 paragraphs dedicated to your reflection, because that's the most important thing. But I know that is also the hardest thing to write, because like we're all brain dead and we can't really come up with stuff. It's like analysis. Like, what are you even analyzing? What are you analyzing from this body paragraph? Like, what does that even mean? But yeah, just spend a lot of time. Just spend a lot of time thinking about it. All right. The more time you spend thinking about it, the deeper that you think, hopefully. So yeah, it takes time. Just don't get frustrated. And if you're watching this now, start your essays right now. Don't wait until the last minute. All right, time is your best friend. Even if you just have a rough draft and you leave it and you come back a week later, you find yourself at a much better place than if you try to cram it all in 1 or 2 days. That is not the way to go. Trust me. All right, trust me. All in all, your essay should look like this. We have the intro, and this is the hook. Should pull your audience into the story. And that should be like 10 to 15%. Preferably it's a paragraph of its own, but you don't necessarily have to follow that format. And then you have the body, and this is probably going to take up like 40% ish of your essay. And then we have the reflection, and this reflection should take about maybe like the same amount as your body paragraph, slightly less. So I wrote 30%. And then in the end we have the ending, and that should take around like 5 to 15% depending on the format you're going for in your essay. So I have no idea if these percentages add up, but you get the general idea. And if you're wondering how to write the ending, don't worry, because step 4 is coming up with a conclusion for your entire essay. Now this is probably just like a couple sentences that wraps up everything that you've said. Basically, summarize the most important parts of whatever you want to tell, especially what happened in the body, and connecting that with the reflection, and make sure that it's like cleverly written. You know what I'm saying? Make sure that it shows your authenticity and your character comes through in your writing. It's like a reverse pickup line, all right? So by this time, you've already gone on the date, right? You've introduced yourself to your crush, and now you gotta set yourself up for a second date, right? You gotta leave them with something to think about. You gotta leave them anticipating the next thing, right? Basically, just hit them with a crazy outro, all right? And then after that's done, you will have your first official rough draft of your personal statement. Let's go! And at this point, you probably want to give up, but you're just getting started because you have to edit that stuff, all right? And make sure everything you write actually makes sense. You have to maximize every word that you use and make sure it's the right word. Find the correct word choice. Make sure that they're placed at the right places at the right time, and you should be good. Just do a lot of editing. Spend a lot of time editing. That's it. It's really not that much of a secret. Okay, so that's about it. I will leave you guys with a couple pieces of advice that I think will help overall. And number one is to force yourself to be original, right? Make sure that your writing is actually authentic, is very grounded, it connects to the reader one-on-one. Make sure that, right, it's okay to have emotion. In fact, you should show emotion in your writing. And don't necessarily try to conform to the application. So what I mean by this is, if a prompt asks you how you've contributed to your community, it doesn't necessarily have to be like volunteering, because that's so generic, right? Everybody does it. You can talk about something more unique or approach this essay in a more unique way. Just think outside of the box, okay? Just think outside of the box. And last but not least, and this is a trick that I think really helped me, and it's summarizing your entire application, including your academics, your personal statement, your supplementals, your teacher recommendations, everything. You summarize that into one sentence, like a one sentence pitch to someone who doesn't know you, right? Explain who you are in one sentence. Make sure that sentence is very memorable, and use that and build your application around it.
So for me, that was, I guess, like a creative visionary who focuses on climate-related engineering solutions as product-driven companies.
Something like that. So yeah, hopefully this video helped you. And if you made it this far into the video, you're a real one. So thanks for that. And I'll be trying to answer all of your questions. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and happy writing. And this probably might be my last like college advice related video. So, but if you want to see more of it, you should comment down below and I'll make some more before I leave for college. But anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.